Hi, I'm Janice Switlo, and today I'm going to take you off the standard path, if you will, and share with you some information and knowledge that came to me very early today. And some may find this a little unusual, others may relate completely to it and understand. I make no apologies for this being not a typical academic exercise in terms of the information that I'm going to share with you. But it is information that I had been thinking on and asking for some direction on, and this morning the direction came, and I am able to share that information with you. I've had a number of these kinds of experiences before, but this was the first time that ancestors involved were people that I worked closely with and became friends with and have missed dearly since their passing. One is a fairly recent passing, not even 6 months, and the other relates back to Gustafson Lake times, and it was very good to be able to spend time with him again. So, you know, I was brought to an area. Now, this is not a traditional setting. This was, you know, a typical gym, you know, that you would find gatherings taking place on reserve now in, you know, the kind of floor and setting. And I found myself sitting on a platform. Picture this gym, you know how high ceilings they are. The top third of that space, and I was sitting on a platform slightly lower than that boundary, if you will, that top third space. I was sitting to the right of a man who was commanding that podium, that platform. Everyone else on that level, that top third, if you will, we're pouring in and milling around and saying hello to each other. Just, you know, if you're attending any kind of conference or whatever, before it gets started, you're sharing your coffee and catching up. It was that kind of scenario. But I knew these were ancestors because I saw two people that I knew very well, as I had just mentioned. So it was fascinating to see this operating. And I'll call him the main man, if you will, to my left. He had a very significant staff with him, and he banged the staff twice, and all the milling about and sharing came to an end. Everyone on that 1/3 level there, top third level, stopped engaging each other and waited, and it was very quiet. And then it was hard to see how many people were in this gym on the main floor, if you will. But I knew it wasn't as many as was expected. But nonetheless, I knew there were people there, but I could not see them because there were so many ancestors just packed to the rafters, literally. And as I said, that was very encouraging to see. And it felt very good to be among them, although I wasn't, as I said, seated at that same level, but just slightly below, but yet I was on this platform. So then I could see the center of the floor, and there came another man, and he said, okay, and he said some things in various languages, and then he said, okay, it's time for the songs to begin. Let us hear your songs. And it was extremely quiet. No one had begun to sing. And he banged his staff twice. He had one as well. And still nothing began. It was very quiet. And at this point, somehow I was given a very plain staff. It was just wood. But the difference between mine is that it was so long. Mine reached to touch the floor, but also reached me where I was sitting, just slightly below that 1/3, top 1/3 level. And so I banged my staff twice. And still there was nothing. At this point, trying to be helpful, I spoke to the main man to my left, and I said, it looks like they don't remember their songs. And my thought was, when you have a song on the radio, suddenly you can remember all the lyrics and the tune if you sing along with the radio. But if you were to just be asked to sing that song without hearing it on the radio, many people wouldn't be able to recall it as easy. So I said, well, hey, what if you start the song, and I'm sure they'll remember. And he looked at me and explained very seriously, and I won't share all the details, that no, that's not how it works, that they must start. And once they start, that sort of help comes. But it cannot be initiated where we were. It had to be, the singing, the songs had to be started on that ground floor. And again, I was, concerned. I said, well, some of them might be shy or ashamed they don't know it properly. And he says, you know what? They don't need to know the whole thing. They just need to start. He says, once they start, we will help them. They will know. But unfortunately, he says, it has to start from them. And so then I engaged him further and said, well, how is it that they can remember? How can we get this going? This is so critical, because it was clear to me that the proper protocols in terms of calling in the ancestors were done very well. The place was packed. There were so many ancestors ready and willing to work and help. They were called in. But then there was nothing to be done because the people on the main floor, if you will, had not begun the songs. And so the ancestors looking around started to leave. They just started to walk away, and they were pretty sad about it. It was, as they were going, because I had seen the two people that were close to me, one who had just passed away not long ago, as I said, less than 6 months, he looked pretty confused. I was smiling because I was so happy to see him there and see that he'd be able to continue his work. But I also knew that this was all very new to him. And so I didn't try to attract his attention. He was sort of looking around, and he was one of the first to leave. But then as the men that I know from Gustafson Lake especially, we worked very closely together and spent many throughout the nights sharing our knowledge. He was going out, and I was just thinking to myself, gee, I'd sure love to spend some time with you, but I didn't feel it was my place to interfere. He could feel my eyes on him. He turned around, saw me, and came running to me, and sorry to get a little emotional because it was a very nice time. But, he was very tired. And I wondered how much of this he had been involved in, called to places, but yet things not getting going. Why? As it was explained to me, because the songs weren't being sung, they weren't being remembered. So we spent that private time, and I was able to say, see you later. And then I turned to hear more from the main man beside me. And I said, well, this was the question, of course, I've been asking for a while now. How do you get this started again? How can we foster the memory? Obviously, I've been sharing a lot of information for decades, in terms of with the idea of triggering memory, reminding people, and it's worked in a lot of ways. But on the sacred level, if you will, I'm not obviously the expert in that. But he explained to me that the way it's done, the way the songs will be remembered, and again, they don't have to be remembered in full, but it's not enough just to call the ancestors in. You have to initiate that invitation to have them actually work with you and help you, and especially help you remember and relearn the whole of the songs. And he said, what they need to do is they need to come together in families. They need to bring their people together and piece together and share whatever little bit of information they have, what's been given to them, and they need to find that starting point. And then they need to just start doing it. And he says, you know, it's not going to be perfect. In fact, some are going to be pretty bad in terms of, you know, what happened to this song. But he says all they have to do is start. He says, because we're here. And this man, I came to understand, holds all the songs, knows all the songs. It's a rich resource to be tapped into. But he cannot interfere. He has to be invited. It has to be commenced. It has to be started by the people. So, you know, a lot of people have been sort of asking, well, what can I do? What can I do? Well, yeah, I mean, I've been saying, you know, get together in your families. I wasn't entirely clear as to the process apart from healing and building relationships. But this is the key first step of being able to piece together your song. Again, you call the ancestors in, but then you must sing. And that opening, and even if starting, it's only a little bit, that's all that's needed. And not to be shy or to be shamed or feel bad that you don't know more. Because as you will start to sing, they will sing with you. And it'll be just like listening to that radio. Suddenly you know the whole song. I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. It's important, you know, as long as people are thinking, well, what can we be doing? We don't want to go this route where our nations die here. Our treaties die with them. We become mere domestic ethnic minorities under control of Canada. They don't want that. A lot of people are saying, well, we got to go back, you know, and let's rise up our clan system, you know, whatever the system is, let's go back. I've said this before, I really need to remind, it's not about going back, it's about moving forward. And you're not going to have all of the memory of all of the song and all of what was involved, but you need to start with that song, and pieces will come into play as you start to connect not only with calling ancestors in to be with you, but to actually work with you. And so my unusual position, you know, of being able to, and the purpose of my long staff, a simple one though, was just to try to, you know, it's kind of like a wake up, right? So I share this with you in the hopes that those songs will be sung very soon. And that's all I have to say.